everyone, my name is Leon. I'm gonna come to you with a build video for my Lancer character. So first of all, I love this game. I think Lancer's a really good game. I think it needs a lot more attention than it has, and it's just fantastic. The easiest way to put this, if you don't know what Lancer is it's kind of like Gundams for D&D. So it's a tabletop game like Dungeons and Dragons, which a lot of people have heard of, but instead of playing like a wizard or a fighter, you're playing like a Gundam character. So you've got your actual pilot, and then you've got this like giant mech that you're controlling. If you want more general information about the game or the rules or very like basic questions, go check out another video. This is a little more intermediate. What I'm going to be doing is just going over my pyromania build for my Genghis that I'm currently playing. Future videos, I'll also go over a few videos of other characters I'm playing in other campaigns, or just some theory craft that I think would work really well. But as always, if you like find an issue with my build or you think something could be done better, let me know in the comments. It's okay. Everyone's got their own ways about it, and I'll even at the end talk about different ways this build can kind of be altered or changed. But starting off, this is going to be a license level 6 build. You could start it at 3, but you get a pretty good damage boost at 4. Um, but yeah, 6 just feels like a really good point. It's where I'll probably do like most of my videos about license level 6. So the main part of this is you're going to take Genghis 3, which is really important. You're going to take at least Caliban 1. I took Caliban 2, although that's a little more optional. And then I took Nelson 1, but you could take something else. Really, Genghis 3 is the main point, and then Caliban 1. Um, but going into it, I do run the Genghis mech, of course, because we're going to be lighting a lot of things on fire. That's why I call this one Pyromania. And this build really uses what the Genghis does to the utmost efficiency. So the Genghis has two things it's really good at. It has a really high armor, and it sets things on fire. And that's mostly it, which comes with a higher heat capacity. I should throw that out. But everything else you could see, your tech attack is terrible, your sensor range is terrible, your speed is terrible. Like, there's a lot of things that Genghis is really bad at. So this build, you're going to be a super tanky. I actually have 4 armor and a lot of hit points. And then I do a ton of AoE damage, which is my goal. I got into one game where the DM put us against a bunch of, like, bugs, like space bugs or something. And I was able to just flamethrower through all of them, and it felt amazing. But if you're in like a boss battle, you're going to be dealing burn damage, which can be really good for bosses. But the AoE is a lot less effective. Regardless, there are some very obvious weaknesses with this build, as any build will have. The main weaknesses for this is that it's still slow. I put enough agility in that I got an extra speed, which is a 33% increase, which is huge, but 4 speed is still pretty slow. Um, and this build actually does have a lot of range, but not as much range as some snipers. So anything that snipes you is going to be really good. Anything that does armor piercing, because a lot of our survivability is in armor, is going to hurt you. And because this is an AoE build, if you're playing in a game with a lot of other melee characters, that's pretty bad. When I first started playing, we were a little bit melee focused at first, so it was really hard for me to find chances to shine. But my current game kind of has 2 ranged. This character I play as a close range Genghis, even though I have really high range, and then 1 more melee character. So it makes it a lot easier for me to position. Well, let's see. Exposed power cells. I don't want to go over all the basics of the Genghis because you can find other videos for that. But this feels really awesome when you can actually get your full explosion off. You pretty much, once you use it, if you exceed your heat cap, you just explode in a cone or in a burst through around you, which is a lot of extra damage. It clears your heat, which you're going to build up heat super easy anyway. Um, the one thing I will say about this power that I don't like is the smoke effect feels really cool for you because everyone inside is invisible except to you, but that also means your allies can't see into it. So I've had problems before where you don't want to smoke like the entire enemy team because then the rest of your team doesn't have anything else to do in there, right? People can't hack in, they can't shoot anyone else because they don't know where they're at in the smoke cloud. So you got to be a little bit careful of that. As far as my loadout, I do have the fuel rod gun from Nuclear Cavalry 3. That's actually pretty optional. I haven't used it too much, but being able to clear your heat on your opponent's turn can be really nice. Um, I'm running a basic shotgun. When I first started off as a secondary weapon, I was using the basic GMS mortar just for because to have something with a little more range on it. But really, you're going to be going so hard into Vanguard that your close quarters combat weapons are really good as they are. So why not just run your shotgun? And then finally, this is it. This is our supermassive plasma Thor. This is our huge weapon of just amazing damage. And I actually didn't realize until recently how much ridiculous damage my mech was outputting compared to like what is considered standard for the game. Especially when you consider I'm doing this in an AoE. My goal in most combats is to try to hit at least 3 enemies per turn with just my plasma thrower. If you can hit 4 or more, that's insane. But you're going to try to hit as many people as possible, which means you need to talk to your teammates about who takes what order first. If you see a really good AoE opportunity, you probably want to go early in the initiative to hit them before everyone scatters. But if you've got a teammate that's really deep in there, talk to them, figure out if their plan is to get out. So you can let them take a turn to get out, your opponents will get a turn, but then you can blast everything they were fighting. So this does a lot of damage on its own. Say Cone 7, Line 10 is really good. Even though I play this as a close range, you can play this as a ranged character. But you'd change up your talents a bit for that, and we'll talk about talents in a bit. But 1d6 plus 2 energy damage, 6 burn damage, and then everything you get from Nuclear Cavalier, which is going to be a lot. Finally, I'm running the Supermassive mod. This comes from, I believe it's Caliban 1, which is why I said license level 4 is really important. Pretty much what you're just doing is you just want your weapon to have knockback 1. That's it. That's really what you're wanting with this. Give it knockback 1. That way, when your plasma thrower puts these little like white hot burning spaces in the ground, you can put the hot space behind them and then knock them back into it, so they're immediately going to be taking that 1d6 damage. Pretty much guaranteed unless somebody else moves them before they get their turn. And that's powerful, because a lot of the times, if you don't have a lot of ways to get your opponent to use these, the flame part of it just doesn't work. So being able to push your enemies back into a space that you're predetermined is really good. If you're in melee range, it means you're guaranteed to have that close to like push them back. And the second part, if you're running with someone like a hacker type character, someone that can really help move people around, try to coordinate with them, because they can also move enemies into these little fire patches, which is really good as well. Onto systems, some of these you can play around with. So the Supermassive mod I consider to be pretty essential. It's 1 SP, so it's not bad. The Ava module is absolutely optional. My DM's been throwing us in a lot of space encounters lately, so having the Ava module so you're not slowed is pretty good. Being slowed isn't actually terrible, because it just moves your speed from 4 to 2, which is not much. But you're already so slow as it is. Why would you just take that? So if you know you're going to be going to space, spend the SP on it. Explosive vents, I really like this, but I don't get to use it too much. Pretty much when you clear all heat or take stress, your cooling vents open and then release a burst 1 explosion for 2 heat, 2 burn. That's pretty good. This actually goes really well if you clear all heat up here with your core system, because this means you do a burst 3 from the core system, you do a burst 1 with your explosive vent, and you probably use your flamethrower for a cone 7. So there's just a massive amount of AoE damage you can take in one turn. Let's see. Other thing I took, the projected shield. I think this is something that gets overlooked. I notice a lot of people online don't seem to pay much attention to the GMS modules, but they're actually not too bad. They're just very basic, so it's really easy to overlook them. But you nominate a player in line of, or character in line of sight. All ranger melee attacks get 2 difficulty on both sides. So that means if you hit them, you're taking 2 difficulty. If they hit you, they're taking 2 difficulty. The reason I really like this is because snipers are bad. Snipers counter this build really hard because you're so slow, it's hard to run up to them. Project Shield kind of helps. So the Project Shield, you can run up and then you're focusing down the melee and the mid-range opponents, and you just throw the shield as a protocol on the sniper. That way if the sniper does want to take a shot at you, which he still might, he takes 2 difficulty, and you don't care because you're not hitting him anyway. I found a lot of times if I throw the shield up, my DM doesn't necessarily throw the snipers at me, but it's still good to have. Otherwise, the snipers will wreck you. Also, a lot of sniper-type characters tend to do armor piercing, which once again, hard counters the build. And the last thing I'm running is hardpoint reinforcement. This is pretty optional. I'm not. This is something I would consider taking out, and I kind of am. Um, but yeah, pretty much if you're not slowed or immobilized, you gain resistance to all damage during your turn. The reason I like this is because if I do need to like run through melee stuff and take a bunch of attacks of opportunity, I have resistance to all that. The reason I don't know if this is necessary is because I already have 4 armor, which is so much, especially because it goes armor then resistance. So there's really not a whole lot of benefit by overlapping a lot of armor with additional resistance. If you wanted to throw this off, a few things. I like the auto cooler. I end up not using it because I have to spend so much time moving. You can't get it. Auto cooler is usually better for sniper type characters. Um, so bulwark mods aren't actually too bad. I would just take, where is that, custom paint job and personalizations. You already have so much armor, having extra hit points from personalizations are pretty cool, and you can get some roleplay out of it. Custom paint job comes in handy, because even being super tanky, since you're going to be pretty like frontline with this build, you're still going to structure occasionally. I think that's all for about this part of it, though. So we're going to go to our tactical profile and look at a few other things. Like I said, I've got 1 Nelson, 2 Caliban, really not necessary. One thing you could do instead, I don't like this, but you could. Where did I keep it at? You could go Lancaster, um, because it's also an IPS with Caliban. I tend to do a pretty good job of not hitting my friends with AoE fire. If you're a very heavy melee team and that's something that's going to happen, you could take 2 points into the White Wall spray. That way, if you do blast them, you can at least like overcharge, take a quick action in order to take that burn off of them. It slows them, which they probably don't like, but yeah. And then, of course, with the cable wrench system from Lancaster 1, you could do some shenanigans. Run up to the sniper, winch them, and then they can't run away from you. I don't know if that's really necessary, but it's kind of a funny thing to think. Also, I don't recommend the mule harness. I thought about this. It's such a joke. Like, you could put the mule harness on the Genghis and no one would ever want to ride you because you're just going to be exploding all the time. It took my team like a game or two to figure out I'm the leper. Just don't stand near me because I just spontaneously explode. Especially when I had auto cooling. Certain missions when you're going to be guarding a point and you may not be moving that much, you'll kind of explode with auto cooling because you just didn't move, and that's not good for your teammates. But the mule harness is kind of funny to think about. As far as mech skills for license level 6, I took 4 hull, 2 agility, 2 engineering. Of course, you can change this up to whatever you need. I think hull is really important, mostly for the HP. Repair capacity is never bad to have, but mech HP plus 8 is really good because the Genghis itself doesn't actually have a ton of health. Agility, you've got like terrible evasion to begin with, so a plus 2 doesn't do you a whole lot of good, but adding 1 speed is good. Boosting your speed from 3 to 4 is actually pretty huge. Systems, I didn't put anything. I like the SP, but this is not the kind of mech you're going to be making tech attacks on. I'm fairly sure, is it a -2? I think I got a -2 to tech attacks. Yeah, yeah, so yeah, don't worry about that. Engineering, so this is the one you can actually be a lot more fluid on. Um, with this build, you really need to plan out your turns because you need to be able to manage your heat really well. I've got a heat cap of 14, which is massive. But when I'm taking 4 heat a turn from my plasma thrower alone, plus another one from the shield if you use that, and then more because I overcharge nearly every turn. I overcharge a ton. Extra heat capacity from engineering is pretty nice. Limited system +1. This doesn't do anything. I have grenades unlocked. If you want to throw them in there because you really like grenades, go for it. I just tend to like consumable items. Why carry around grenades when I can just blast something with fire every turn? But yeah, I prioritize hull. You could prioritize more engineering, and I wouldn't think poorly of you for it. Core bonuses. So the 3 ranks in Genghis for Harrison, I leak superior by design. I think this is just amazing. You gain immunity to impaired and +2 heat cap. The 2 heat cap is huge, because even though you have a lot of heat cap already, you're always wanting more. Impaired actually comes up quite a bit. Like I said before, since you're pretty frontline, you're going to take structure a lot, and impaired comes up as a condition you can get from structure. So it's actually really funny when your DM is like, oh, you're impaired. And I'm like, actually I'm not because I'm just superior. And that feels pretty good. The other one here, I like slope plating because I just like the idea of having the maximum 4 armor instead of the base 3. This is a little bit overkill, maybe. Instead, there's a few other choices you can have, and later in the video, when I go over recommendations, we'll go over some different core bonuses you can look at. Talents. That's talents for my build. There's not a whole lot I can really change here. Ace. The only reason I've been taking Ace is because we're doing a lot of stuff in space. The Ava unit makes you always flying, so while flying, I automatically have +1 accuracy to all agility, and you can fly 2 spaces when you attack misses you, which it won't miss very often. Specifically, it needs to miss you, not hit and take 0 damage. But if you ever get it off, an extra 2 spaces movement is always really good. So if you're playing on a campaign where you're going to be a lot more planets and not very fly, don't take Ace. It's not worth it. Vanguard is amazing because we're using a close quarters combat weapon. The main thing here is a lot of these say within like range 3, within range 3, so that's why this has to be a very melee focused build, even though you're using a plasma thrower with good range. Yeah, if you get close, you get 1 accuracy, which is pretty good. You'll be at 3 grit +1 accuracy, means you're extremely unlikely to ever miss with just that. Unless you're facing a mech that is naturally evasive, you're almost guaranteed to hit. Unless you roll a bunch of 1s, which is... It happens, you know? Other part, modified, you get to ignore soft and hard cover when attacked within range 3. That's also just pretty good to have, right? If you're in range and your opponent has soft or hard cover, no, they don't. That's just a really nice thing to have. You just blow through their cover. And then the third one, this is pretty optional. You can attack with Overwatch using close quarters combat when hostile characters enter, leave, or exit spaces. Unfortunately, you can't Overwatch with your giant plasma thrower. I wish. It's just too big. But that's why I take the basic shotgun instead. And maybe you could find a different shotgun to take or something else. I don't care. I think the basic shotgun is alright. I also like, just because I want to use the plasma thrower every turn, I like the basic shotgun because it doesn't have reloading on it. That's pretty important. Some shotguns have reloading. Nuclear Cavalier. The third one is kind of optional. The first 2 are not. This is too much damage to be missing. First attack you make when you're in the danger zone, which will be pretty much every turn after the first turn, you deal 2 heat on a hit. That's really good. Especially if you have a like hacker character in your party that can also help build up heat. Suddenly, overheating enemy mechs is actually a legitimate strategy, when it normally isn't. First attack you make deals 1d6 bonus energy damage on a hit. This is pretty good. One thing here, it says your first attack roll, so it's only going to be the first character you actually hit in your AoE, but extra 1d6 energy damage is pretty good. This also will, if you use your shotgun instead, it'll turn your kinetic to energy, which is just pretty good. So now you're just getting a bonus 1d6 on top of the already 1d6? Yeah, 1d6. And then last you get the fuel rod. I actually don't use the fuel rod that much. It's handy, but if I'm going to make a close quarters attack without my plasma thrower, I usually just prefer the 1d6 from the shotgun. I know this is 1d3 plus 2, which is still pretty good, but I don't know. I just like the shotgun. This is also limited, but you've got a few extra uses. Take and use this as you wish. It's good. I just don't use it too much myself. Mike died, sorry. Okay. Combined arms. I really like combined arms. 2 things. If you're engaged, you and your allies adjacent to you kind of softening self-cover. Because I'm pretty much running into melee, I'm almost always engaged. The 2 caveats to this is it says any allies adjacent to you, you will almost never have allies adjacent to you. Because they don't want to explode into fire. I get it. The second thing is, remember, if you're going to be knocking people away because of the supermassive mod, they're not going to be engaged with you anymore. So you got to be a little bit careful of that. But the more important thing is that you don't get difficulty when being engaged. This is really good if you've got like an enemy mech that thinks he's going to hit with your sword. Be like, aha, now you're engaged and you take a difficulty. You're like, no, I don't. Not only that, you don't take the difficulty from being engaged, but now you have +1 accuracy because of Vanguard. Those two work really well together. For this build, assuming you're doing the close range build, I think Combined Arms 2 is pretty necessary. And then as before, here's Ace. Take it if you like it, or if you're going to do a lot of space combat, but if you take other things, that's totally okay. Or something else. Oh yeah, for talents are actually a really good opportunity to like create some background for your characters too. So always use that as an opportunity, especially for like Vanguard 3, Nuclear Cavalier 3, and Ace 1. That's 3 points that I consider to be somewhat optional. You can take something else if it works out better for your character. Um, if you want to do something like, is it Technophile I'm thinking of? Technophile having like an NHP to work with you. Like, it's not an amazing talent, but it gives you so much flavor to your character. And you can really do like a good job with your background stories if you're using Technophile. You might as well use it. Walking Armory can also be really good depending on what you're doing. Take whatever is fun for you. Okay, and the next part, these are going to be some like recommendations for future builds. So if I go like further into like license level 9, or if you want to change up the build a little bit, these are some of the things I'm going to recommend you check out. We already talked about the Lanecaster. It's a little bit memey, but it actually has some legitimacy to it, so go for that if you want. The other thing I recommend is, what was it? Sherman and Tokugawa. That was it. There's a few things in here. Sherman, I think this is one. Yeah, so you can reroll overheating checks, but you have to keep the second result even if it's worse. This is pretty good considering you're going to be like near overheat a lot. In all my game, like 6 games with the character, I've actually never overheated. There's enough things you can do to kind of regulate your heat that it's not a problem. But if you do overheat, like maybe you just go crazy and don't worry about it, either as a player or as a character, Reactor Stabilizer can be amazing for this build. And then Redundant System Upgrade is amazing. Expended Charge stabilizes quick action. Because of my build, I would actually get 3 of these, and being able to stabilize as a quick action is huge. Either to heal yourself, which you're going to do occasionally, or just to be able to dissipate all your heat because you're getting really close. Both of them are really good options. Redundant Systems Upgrade is huge and really good. That was another one. Oh yeah, the Tachyon Lance gets like an honorable mention here. It has 8 burn on it. Look at this. 2d6, 8 burn. Oh, this is an amazing weapon. 20 range. It's a cannon, so it doesn't get the same bonuses, but you can take other talents instead. The reason I don't include this as a must-take is because if you're taking the Tachyon Lance, you are rapidly changing over this build. The Tachyon Lance essentially makes you like an overheating sniper, more than like somebody who's going to go into the thick of battle and AoE things down. But the Tachyon Lance is really powerful. This is just a completely different build if you're taking this. You could take it with a Sherman, you could take it with a Genghis. If you want to build for the Tachyon Lance, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll make one. But we're getting into the range of other things now. Last one is Tokugawa. Tokugawa has a lot of really cool things on it. The mech itself is really interesting. I'm not sure if it's good, but it has so much damage potential, it's crazy. One thing I want to talk about, external batteries, don't take this. This is a trap. I saw people online talking about doing this with a flamethrower because +5 range sounds crazy, right? 10 line, 7 cone is already crazy. If you did a 15 line and a 12 cone, that is nuts. However, we'll go right here, page 64 of the core rulebook. There's this tiny, really easy to miss paragraph. I'm not even like trying to hurt on the people that miss this. But some mech frames assist in current increased range. This does not increase the size of the area affected by cone, line burst, or blast attacks. Some people online seem to think it works. It doesn't. They specifically made it so it doesn't. My dream of the bigger fire flamethrower is just, it's not meant to be. So yeah, don't take that. Depot heat sink though, and you start your turn in the danger zone, you can resistance to heat for the rest of your turn. The effect persists even if you leave the danger zone during your turn. This is actually pretty good. You pretty much want to get to the danger zone and then like fluctuate in that upper half. So being able to have resistance to all heat in the upper half is really good. The problem, this is 4 system points. Dear God, that's a lot. That's so much. I don't you have to spend so much to get this, but it is really good. I don't have a lot of problems already regulating my heat in combat, and that's without me even using the fuel rods very often. But you can use this just to get a little bit more. Up to you, it's okay. And then the Lucifer class and the Plasma Gauntlet. These are pretty crazy. Lucifer Protocol, you're just going to deal so much damage. Your next ranger melee attack this turn, bonus damage on hit equal to your current heat after activating this protocol. Here's the thing, you're going to take 1d3 plus 3 heat. So you're going to take a lot of heat from doing this, but getting to add, like, bonus damage equal to your current heat, my heat cap is 14. Adding 14 damage is, oh my god, that's a lot of bonus damage. That's crazy. 14 damage will one-shot most things. So you can run Lucifer Protocol, which is going to heat you up a lot, but man, this is good. The one thing you do have to be careful, because you're going to be taking a lot of extra heat just from running this, is you have to worry about cascading. Do not cascade, especially if you cascade with Lucifer open and your opponent or your DM gets control of Lucifer. They're going to start setting your allies on fire, which is terrible. So there's a lot of potential here. You have to be careful. I don't necessarily recommend it, but if you just want as much damage as possible, sure. Technically, you deal more damage in combat if you hit your allies too, but your allies tend to frown on you for that. They just don't understand. And then Plasma Gauntlet's really good. System can only be activated in the danger zone, which is, you're going to pretty much always be in the danger zone. But yeah, as a quick action, your opponent must succeed an agility save or take 4d6 AP energy damage and be knocked prone. That's a lot of damage. Limited 1, so you're not getting a lot of uses out of that, even with your extras. This is only 2 system points, though, which isn't too bad. And despite this actually sounding like an attack, it's not. Your opponent just makes a save. There's no attack here, so it doesn't take a weapon slot. Which, as you saw before, we don't have a whole lot of... There's not a lot of weapon slots available to us. We really only have 2 weapons. We have 1 extra as integrated, but... Yeah. But yeah, if you want to further the build, this is kind of what I recommend going into. Last thing I want to do is talk about core bonuses. So the core bonuses, just to go over again. Oh, I think it's on this page, isn't it? Oh, no. Core bonuses, yeah. So I took Superiority by Design and Sloped Plating. There's a few more other options you can take, some of which I actually probably should change this build to. But it depends a little bit also on what your DM is doing. If there's certain things they really like to throw at you, that should change your build as well. So first of all, GMS, auto-stabilizing hardpoints, is actually really good. Considering we're pretty much just dealing damage with one weapon, for the most part, one weapon, giving +1 accuracy is pretty good. I don't take this because being in melee range already grants me an accuracy, and the more accuracies you stack, the less efficient it becomes, but, you know, an extra one isn't too bad. If you're going to be playing this kind of build, but you don't want to get up in melee, like I do, then this might be really good, because you're not going to have the 1 accuracy from Vanguard. Where's that? IPS, where's the reinforced frame? Yeah, so this is one, I took 1 armor up to 4, because you start at 3. Instead of +1 armor, you could take 5 HP. Both of them are really good. If your DM throws a lot of things at you that are armor piercing, adding an extra +1 armor doesn't help. Adding 5 HP is a lot more valuable. However, having 4 hip, 4 armor is really nice when some opponent's attacks will hit you and then literally deal 0 damage because you're armor. That feels pretty good. I like that. So I still like the armor, but I've definitely considered switching to the HP before. And in the future, I might try it out. Last thing I wanted, I've got Superior by Design, grants immunity to Impaired and +2 heat cap, but you could also take the Heatfall cooling system. This means the cost for your overcharge never goes past 1d6 heat. I like this because I overcharge a lot. Like I said before, I overcharge almost every turn. Sometimes you need the extra movement to get in range. Sometimes you want to overcharge. That way you can actually go over your heat cap to proc your core bonus. Or maybe you just want to overcharge because you can blast everything with your flamethrower, overcharge, and shoot something with your shotgun. I've had a few times where I blast everything and then you've got one enemy that's sitting there with one hit point left and you really don't want to give him a turn. Just overcharge, shoot him with the shotgun, be done with it. Feels pretty good. So yeah, I would actually like Eatfall. If I continue further in this campaign to 9, I probably will aim for Eatfall cooling systems. Just because overcharging, like getting an extra quick action is huge. Like that's really good. You can pretty much always find something to do a quick action for. I think that's actually about it for this video. I don't know how long I've been going for. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna probably be uploading some other videos pretty soon with other build ideas. This is what I'm playing in my main campaign right now, but I might add some from like other campaigns or some theory crafts. But is there anything you want to know or any build you're working on that you want to kind of get some help with? Send them my way and I'll see what I can come up with. Um, Especially if you've got anything like a mech or a weapon that you just think is terrible and cannot figure out a use for it, send it my way. I'll figure out a way to make it work and prove it to you. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for hanging out. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Oh, follow me on Twitch because I stream on Twitch a lot. That's pretty fun. But yeah, thanks for being here. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.